What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. This week we are back to one of my favorite, I would say underrated leaders, but one of my favorite rogue leaders to use, which is Cooler. So I'm going to show you the updated FB05 Cooler. He did actually get some support and is more competitive than I think some people think, as I've been testing him this past week. So what we'll do is get into each card in the deck that I have, why it's there, what it does. We'll get into the strategies of playing the deck, its strengths and weaknesses, and we will end with going through some of the other cards to consider swapping in and out. But without further ado, let's just get into what we came to do. Alright, here's the deck list up there. We've got Cooler before his transformed form, up there before his final form, I guess you'll call it. So that's the deck list on the left. Pretty simple deck list, to be honest. We've got pretty much 4 of almost everything. We've got a few with just 2. We do have the one secret rare Frieza that I'll talk about. I actually do want more in there. I just don't actually have any more, but not too big of a deal, I think. So let's kind of get into what he's like. So for those of you that don't know, Cooler is a critical leader, a crit leader. So when he inflicts damage with an attack, the life is placed into the drop. Now, as you know, the crit leaders that attack and place into the drop also don't draw upon attack. So he's kind of an interesting leader that is going to be starved yourself if you're not awakening quick enough, and also can starve your opponents by forcing them to either take that hit and potentially get like a super combo into drop, or a lot of times they're going to want to defend that. Notice too that the permanent on your turn, this card gets 5,000 power. So he is going to be a 20,000 attacker before he's awakened, so it means your opponent has to at least put 10k combo if they want to defend that attack. So it's really, you want to play off of that with this, and I have a way of doing so that we'll talk about. Alright, then let's flip him over at 4 or less. You're going to flip him. He's going to be 20k on both your turn and your opponent's turn from there, and then you can start drawing. So you do, although you do want to focus before you're awakened on getting that crit hits onto your opponent, you do really want to awaken as quickly as possible with this card in order to take advantage of his ability. A turn 4 awakening would be ideal. That's really where you want to be. Turn 3, not quite, but if you get to turn 3, not the end of the world. So here is what it is. So when attacking, you do draw a card from there, so that's going to help you. And then you're going to be able to use this activate main or battle once per turn, so you can do it on yours and your opponent's turn. Discard a card from your hand, choose up to 1 of your battle cards with the cost of 4 or less, and freeze a clan in its special traits or one of your energy and switch it to active mode. Right? I'm rarely, if ever, going to use that energy to active mode, especially with this list I have here. It just really flows to where you're going to be playing that single card that takes up all of your energy, except maybe turn 2, maybe sometimes turn 3. So you're rarely going to be using that with this list, and you really want to get more bang for your buck with getting one of your cards back to active mode. And you're also going to be using that ability on your opponent's turn. Now, real quick before I get too far into this, we'll talk about kind of the main card to use that ability, which came out in the last set and really made Cooler viable again. Right, so that ability is really tough when you think about it, because you're pre-awakening, not drawing, so you're already kind of at a hand disadvantage if you're not careful. To have to discard from your hand really can be a struggle, you know, because we're now sacrificing. It's like a ticking time bomb of how long you're going to survive. So this is where this guy comes in handy. So we're going to play 4 of him, which is on play. We add 1 card from your left to your hand, so he's a self-awakener. And then auto once per turn, when one of your battle cards other than this card is switched to active mode by your Cooler leader skill, draw a card. So in essence, now we're getting a wash. We're getting a 1-for-1. We're discarding and we're drawing. So as long as your hand is not too ridiculously good, it can actually be a really good thing to discard and draw. You can discard, a lot of times I'm going to get rid of those low cost cards when I don't need them anymore that just have the 500 combo. Hope to get a 1k combo or another card that I need to play, like some of these King Colds or Mecha Friezas that we'll talk about in a bit as well. So this guy you need to get out. This is, I don't want to say it's the core of this deck anymore, but it is one of the core pieces. Like if you don't have him out, you're gonna struggle. The problem is, admittedly, he is easy to KO, but the good thing about this is that now with this King Cold that we're going to talk about, it's going to really help him out. So let's just get right into the King Cold and why this deck is really kind of viable, and it really changes the style of this deck, along with another card that I'll get into too. And I am seeing a lot of different King Cold lists out there. Shout out to the Fusion World Discord. I don't know if it's like official or anything, but those of you in there know who you are. I'm getting a lot of Cooler hype in there. I'm doing it, okay? I'm going to go to 1 day of regionals. I'm going to go to 2 days. I'm playing Cooler 1 day, okay? So this is going to happen. So anyway, let's get back to this. Okay, so this King Cold, he's a 4-drop, 25k power, 0 combo though, unfortunately. But this is what's really good. So on play, if you have a total of 3 or more cards with Frieza Clan in their special traits among your leader and battle cards, play up to 1 non-King Cold battle card with a cost of 4 less than Frieza Clan in its special traits from your hand, right? So this guy counts and your leader counts. So all you need is at least 1 other Frieza Clan card on the field and you're good. So in an ideal world, your turn 3, you're going to be playing this guy. And you're going to cross your fingers that your opponent does not take him out. As a 3 cost, relatively easy to remove. So cross your fingers that they don't. But if all goes well, then you're going to have him, and you're going to have your leader, which means you're going to be able to play King Cold, and then throw out any other 4 cost or less cards, right? So that is really good. All right, so that means you're going to be able to play this guy. In an ideal world, he's who you're throwing out there with him, at least on the initial turn, because now we get that defense. And now you're going to want to be using Cooler's ability to unrest him and potentially get up to 2 attacks per turn. And also remember all of this stuff. So he's a blocker, a 30k blocker. I mean, that's huge. He's a really great defensive card and offensive card in the fact that you can restand him. And then when attacking or blocking, choose 1 of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to rest mode. So any, regardless of the cost. And then if that card has cost of 2 or less, KO it. So it really helps you at the very least rest 1 of your opponent's cards. And at the very best, if it's a 2 or less, then that card just gets wiped from board. So that's going to be able to help you against other yellows. I find this really works well. Getting rid of their Bulmas is really nice. Getting rid of Whis. If you're playing red, really good in there. And guess what? If you're playing blue, Videl. So this is such a great card. I mean, it's the FB01, and to me, if this card didn't exist, then this deck would also be great. So it's kind of a card that's so necessary. And then on your opponent's turn to be able to block and hit. So what you may do is, depending on where your opponent's at, you may attack once, rest and KO, or just rest, and then restand him with your Cooler ability. And then just leave him. And that way you already are good to go from the very beginning. You have a block. And then if you need it again, restand him, block a second time. And you can even do it on the turn where he's blocking. So, great. And then the fact is that you can also have this, sorry, not that King Cold. You can have him as an attacker. So we can get to turn 4 with potentially having 25k and a 30k body on the board, which actually is a big help, because one of the biggest weaknesses to this deck last set was that, yes, we need this Cooler out there, but now we're on turn 3 and this guy can't attack. You do not want to attack with him because you don't want him to be vulnerable. You have to force your opponent to use removal cards on it. So in many ways it can help you sometimes if they've got to use like a Sinister Sickle to get rid of him, or Final Explosion, whatever. Every deck, every color has one now, so it can be a waste for them, and then it can help you to swarm, but it is possible. So anyway, let's go through. So let's kind of back up a little bit now that we've gotten through some of the main pieces here. Now I'll say this guy I did remove for a bit. I actually had replaced him with Bulma. Bulma is nice. Bulma's a great addition because of the fact that she can help you draw a card, which is so necessary here. And I also find that the activate main, return card to hand and play a Cooler with cost of 4, I'm not really using that at all this time, because I'd rather be playing that King Cold now.
So this is much less useful than it would be. I'm rarely going to use this on turn 3 because I'm going to be playing my draw cooler that we just went through. So this guy's not here. So why do I have him? He's a terrible blocker. The reason is he has Frieza Clan. And he at least has some utility as a blocker. Because what I do find is I want to throw him out there as soon as possible. And just kind of let him sit. If I don't have a cantrip in hand, like Sorbet, or if I don't have this guy in hand, then Cooler can go out there, he can chill. Hopefully my opponent doesn't remove him. And that way, if this guy does get removed, then I've got a Frieza Clan sitting. So this is why I have this card in here. This is why I'm playing this Cooler, just to have him sit. In a pinch, if my opponent does leave him out there because they don't really feel the need to remove him, then he's a blocker that can kind of sneak up on them later game when I'm starting to swarm the board and they're taking out my guys. Now I can block. Doesn't happen often, but at least he's a body with Frieza Clan on there that can help me move forward. Now here's another one that I'm really on the fence about, is our Cocoon Pod Mecha Frieza. And the reason about this one is I want my opponent to attack me. I need them to awaken me. I need to be awakened by turn 4, because this deck is really about pressure. So the problem with this Mecha Frieza is that he's not just a regular searcher. He does have to switch to rest mode. And then you're going to look at the top 3, reveal a Frieza Clan, add to your hand, place at the bottom. So it is really, it is nice that he does help you search and can be used multiple turns. However, I will rarely use him turn 1 if I play him. I'm just going to let him sit because I don't want my opponent attacking me turn 2. Now, turn 2, I might, which I'll talk about why in a minute, if I do attack. But otherwise, I'm just going to leave him there. Sorbet, I need Sorbet as a cantrip. I do want to be able to draw, and my ideal turn 1 is actually playing Sorbet. It's actually real tempting, to be quite honest, to just replace this Mecha Frieza with a Hercule or another card, just really any other cantrip. But I do like him in there. He does come in a pinch. There are times where you will play him, and he does help you to search. Like if you just get a really bad hand, and Mecha Frieza is one of those cards, you know, it is good because we're only getting 1 draw per turn, so he does help us out in a pinch. So that's why I keep him in there. And he's also another Frieza Clan card. So just similar to our Cooler, then we have him as another Frieza Clan that sometimes I've actually gone through times where I do not use his ability once and just leave him out there just to make sure that I'm going to be able to use my King Cold, right? Then we've got this Frieza I've already gotten the anniversary pack because I couldn't wait, and this is such a nice card. On play, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, switch to rest mode. It's just a really good card to force rest mode. If you want to get rid of some cards early, you can do so. It's another one that I'm a little bit careful of using because I really actually want to use my crit on my opponent. Like you want to just attack your opponent for as long as you have crit. But he obviously has 10k. He's a 1-cost card that can help you get rid of him. And again, another Frieza's army. And really, if you're going to have this Mecha Frieza in there, then you want to have the more Frieza army, the better. So this deck overall, almost every card in there is, except for the Sorbet. And then we've got one other non-Frieza's card army. Now, this is another one that just took this deck to the next level. It really puts pressure on your opponent on this way, right? He's on play. He's a Self-Awakener, which we need. And then finally, this yellow gets their 20k, 5k combo crit, 2-cost crit. And this works so well in Cooler. So well. I removed all of my Frieza 2-cost Self-Awakeners for him because it was just too good. Now, think about this when we're attacking our opponent. I mean, how many of you remember the Beerus? When you're getting hit by Beerus and then they're throwing out the Keflas that are crits, and it's like, oh, this sucks. You can't get a hand. This can actually help you to gain hand advantage despite not drawing upon attack. And it's so nice, especially against decks like Janemba. Like, I've actually done really well against Janemba. I haven't I'll show in our next video what my record was so far, but I've gone 1-2 against him, which sounds bad, but I misplayed the first time. I won the second, and I was 5k combo and a lucky hand of my opponent away from another win. You can kind of beat him at his own game. This crit, so really, like in an ideal world, this is your turn to play. Now you're hitting for 2 crits, boom, boom, boom. With him, with potentially you're getting them awakened, and they might have to either take all those crits or be down to nothing. I've had opponents awaken with 2 cards in hand, 3 in hand, and that is a huge advantage for when we start swarming them. Let's move on. Alright, I did keep this Meta-Cooler in there. I really like him as a blocker, and the fact that he auto restands at the end of turn. I don't think there's any reason not to include this one. He's one of my few 5k combos. I did get as many 10s as possible, but a 20k body that's going to be able to hit and then restand has saved me many times. So not much to say about him, but that's where we're at. Okay, now this one is one that I'd like to have more in this deck. He's not super important. I've actually only played him a few times, so that's why I only have 2 copies of him, because that's all I could fit. He's one of the few that just has 2. But I do think that he's valuable as a 3 cost, because you do add 1 card from left to hand, choose a battle card in your opponent's battle area, switch to rest mode. So he's literally the 2 cost Frieza with 1 cost more and 5k combo more. So he is really good. I mean, this is a good card. It'd be nice to fit more, but again, your ideal play is going to be that 3 cost Cooler. So you're oftentimes not going to play him, but he's at least going to stay in your hand and be a 10k combo. I would consider, to be honest, you may consider just swapping him for this King Cold, because your 5 cost Frieza can play him, but your 4 cost King Cold can also play the other. So that's a little bit tricky. Now I did include 2 copies of these, so this is my other one, so I skipped a couple cards again. And I threw in 2 of these bad boys, because our Mecha Frieza that I'll talk about in a minute can play him for free. He is a blocker. 25k blocker is often going to get KO'd, but you are going to be able to choose a rest mode battle card with 4 or less and KO it if he gets KO'd. Not bad. So, and he's also a 10k combo. Alright, so let's move back over here. One more. Frieza. Great card. Honestly, not as essential or needed as I maybe thought he would be in this deck. I do play him a lot. I don't always use his ability. But think about this. There is some really great benefits to him. If I did have 2, I am playing 2. And at the moment, this is a 50 card deck. Honestly, just for kind of consistency purposes, I would probably just add 1 more if I had one. I've somehow only pulled 1 of these on the client, and it just happened to be the rarest one. So honestly, I would probably play 2 and just increase to a 51 card deck. But he is good. So he's got the barrier. The thing about him is, I find I get a lot more value out of using my ability on my 4 cost Cooler to restand him rather than this Frieza. And my opponents see that too. I mean, your opponents often aren't going to go for this guy anyway because they know you're going to defend him. They really don't like King Cold more anyway. I mean, sorry, 4 cost Cooler anyway. And I usually want to put him out there because of his blocking potential, and because, yeah, this guy for 2 energy can put a 5 cost card into drop, but my Cooler can sometimes put a 2 cost into drop while blocking an attack. So I like that. But think about this. This is actually something I didn't even think of, and it could cause me to use him a little bit more. It's when attacking for 2. Choose a rest mode battle card, 5 or less, put into their drop. This is when attacking. Remember that we can restand him in our turn. So let's say that you just, especially late game, you are going to get down in hand, and late game is going to be like turn 5 or 6. So sometimes, and this happened to me yesterday, you don't have anything in hand to play. We've already played it. So what you can do is attack 2 energy. You can put a card in drop. And then guess what? Use Cooler's ability, restand him, attack again for 2 more energy, which you may have because you may not have played a battle card. And then you can you can KO another one. So this guy, and he's already at 30k attack. So I mean, you may be able to eliminate 4 battle cards if possible, or you may be able to hit for 2 life, or at least attack 2 life and remove 2 and clear the board. So now I didn't really think of this for some reason, so I may be using him a little bit more. So this card is really good. Like, it's kind of up to you. What do you see more value in, having your Cooler restand at the end of your turn to be able to block again, or just restand this Frieza and attack a second time? It may be worth it to attack a second time rather than leaving him restood to prevent it. I mean, if you have the means to defend him, you go right ahead, but your opponents are, unless they know you have nothing in hand, they're not even gonna try. So pretty cool. Alright, so we're almost done here. We have our Mecha Frieza. So this is going all the way back to set 1. And this card is like, I remember first seeing it, I was like, a 5 cost 25k? Like, this is garbage. You know, yeah, I could play a King Cold with a cost of 4, but really at that point we only had this King Cold, or maybe, I think there's a 4 cost 30k power one. It's like, this is not worth it. But now that we have this bad boy, like, that's a ridiculous combo. So this is what I'm gonna do a lot, right? And we're gonna get this out. So let's say in an ideal world, turn 1, Sorbet. Turn 2, Jeice. Turn 3, this Cooler. Turn 4, this guy and this guy. And remember, the only guy that we're defending is this dude. Just, you know, if they want to waste a turn, I don't want to say waste, but if they want to go after King Cold, unless you really feel it's worth it to defend, don't. Because then guess what? Turn 5, we're going to play Mecha Frieza into another King Cold, into either this guy or this guy. Just think about how ridiculous now that board swarming is. And also the fact that these are all like 4 cost plus cards, so it's not like we're swarming 3s. And this is why I'd consider changing for someone else, but you do want to keep him just to make sure that we have this in hand, because at the worst case we're going to go with Frieza into this one and you can decide on what to do. But that's a really good board swarm there. And remember the fact that we've been attacking our opponent since, you know, we at least got 1 turn in, turn 2, where we hit him with 2 crits. Their hand size is not going to be that large. And it's so soon. Like, yeah, they may drop a Super Saiyan 4 Goku if it's black and be drawing, but we're not that far into that, and we're pressuring them so fast that things are crazy. So that's where I'm at. Like, this Mecha Frieza, in a pinch, he's also a 10k combo, so that's really good. I think if he was released now, he'd probably be a 500 because of this King Cold, but hey, the King Cold's got 0. So really good. I love this. I just love it. So you're going to just swarm your opponents. A lot of times, I'm just going to get their board down to be manageable enough to where I don't die, but you don't even need to clear their board. Just focus on going straight at them. So they're going to have to be defending their life with a hand size that's not that large, unless they've got some ridiculous stuff going here. All right, now the last one here, I do have this 6 cost Frieza in there. You know, he's a really good one if your opponent's playing a little bit more defensively, you're going to go with this one. I find myself not always playing him. Like, a lot of matches, I'm not playing him anymore because I'm getting more value. Even on turn 6, if I've got another Mecha Frieza in hand with another King Cold, I'd rather get 3 bodies versus 1. And a lot of times too, maybe we're at 6 energy and we're going to play King Cold into our secret rare Frieza. Whew, I've got 2 more left. I'd rather use that. I mean, Frieza does get the auto KO, but you're getting basically the same value, a little bit less power, but overall more. You know, you're talking about 50k power versus 40 in one body against the Frieza. But it does depend. If you know that you're not going to get game for a couple more turns and your opponent is playing big, like maybe against blue where you're talking about these Vegetos coming in now, you're probably going to want to go with the golden Frieza. So I only have 2, but that's all I think would be necessary. And that's pretty much it, although let's have one last little look here. Like the other card, this super combo is so cool. with the Zarbon and the Dorio. So that really works. So that is the deck. Let's get into the strategy, strengths, and weaknesses. I'm pretty sad I haven't pulled a Meta-Cooler alt yet. I'd like to show it up here, but yeah, maybe soon. Anyway, what's the strategy of this deck? Is pressure early with crit. You know, attack leader, leave their board open. Unless you've got a non-crit, wait till turn 4, just let them attack you. The more the merrier to help you get down and ensure that you awaken, and then just start defending at 4 life and less, and you know, get their hand size down as much as yours. You really want it self-awaken by turn 4, whether it's your opponent hitting you or you awakening with cards, which hopefully it's going to be a Zarbon and a Cooler 3 cost. Now do consider on turn 3 occasionally, if you know that your opponent is going to go hard the next turn, you may not want to get that awakening with our Cooler, with this guy, right? If you're already down and your opponent has hit you, and they're going to be hitting because you're not really messing with their board yet and they've already got some attackers out, you may opt out of this. But sometimes it could come back to bite you because your opponent may decide to go ahead and just have their board sit and take some time. Don't get too scared of that, because even if they do decide to do that and they want to slow it down for a turn, that's okay. You know, we're going to be swarming our board as well, so it just gives us even more bodies, and them, if they're not awakened yet, you know, it gives us another chance to hit them with those crits again, right? Then from there, we're just going to be flooding the board. You know, let's get these Coolers out there with our King Colds. Let's get our secret rare Friezas out there, all that good stuff. The strengths of this deck now, right? Deadly double crits. Oh, that was hard to say. Deadly double crits. Deadly double crits with Cooler and Jeice. Just really works out well. That Jeice was a great addition to this deck. And I didn't even think about it at first. I'm like, I always think, like, what am I going to play on turn 2? I don't have a lot. Oh, Jeice, duh. Somebody in the Fusion World Discord gave me that too, so I'm not going to take credit. But that really took it to the next level. And you've got constant pressure with this deck. This deck is an aggro deck to the max, which is, well, now we're seeing a little bit more aggro with Janemba. We did see a lot more kind of control with Vegeta and beforehand. And then kind of the odd, like, hand destruction or hand control with Evil Boo. And this deck also does pretty well against Evil Boo because your hand size is going to be low. So we're just going to really pressure him and get them at their own game. Like, for example, with Janemba, he wants to awaken early. All right, buddy, you want to awaken early? You're going to do it by having no hand size. Constant pressure. Really great synergy here, too. The whole thing, we are going with the Frieza clan so that we can be sure. So it is an interesting deck when we're thinking about it. I'm not playing any of these Vegeta 3 costs. I don't have the Goku 4 cost. We're not doing that, and we don't need to. It doesn't fit the style of this deck, but it gives us really good synergy here, right? Weaknesses, though, it can be starved very badly. If your opponent just opts into deciding to get you just down and not awaken you, if you don't find your self-awakeners, which is pretty tough. I mean, we've got 4 Jeice, we've got 4 of the 3-cost Coolers, and then we even have a couple of those Friezas in there too. You know, don't forget about this guy. If you need to play him because we don't have the other, it is a when attacking as well, so your opponent's going to want to take him out. And you can also switch to rest mode. But if you struggle to find them, which can happen because we're only drawing 1 per turn a lot of times, then that can be tough. Really poor defense of this deck. You know, first off, because anytime you're swarming your board, it's getting rid of cards in hand. But there are just a lot of 0 combos in this deck. In fact, let's see how many we've got. We've got 4 of these guys. We've got 4 King Colds. And then we've got 1 Frieza, 3 total secret rare Friezas. And a lot of times, even these 10Ks, we don't want a combo. Like, it feels really bad to 10K combo, yes, a 5-cost Frieza. Unless you've already got 3 in hand, because you know that, man, that's going to help me swarm the board. We also don't have any, like, big attackers. So if we aren't able to just swarm and take our opponent's life faster than they're taking ours, then we're going to get overrun as well. This is a deck that really just focuses more so on your opponent's leader rather than clearing their board. This is a deck that wants to win by turn 6, right? Because otherwise your defense is going to run out. So if they can get through and they can weather the storm, it's going to be very hard for you to weather their storm that's going to come. Right, let's talk about some other cards to consider in this deck. This one was really one that I actually almost threw in there. It is a good Self-Awakener, and the when attacking is rather nice. You know, it does cost 1 energy, draw 2 cards, then discard 1 from hand. So if you really want to take a different approach to this deck and go slightly more defensive early, you know, could be an option. But the thing is like I said, you know, when we're thinking about our ideal turns, like we don't have the energy to spend on this. We just don't, you know, we don't have the energy to spend to draw the 2 and discard 1. It just, to me, feels a lot better to play Jeice and go for the crit, where this is a pressure deck. Maybe if you go with a more defensive Cooler, I think that she would work, but I'm not going to include her. The one that was really hard for me to remove was the Meta-Cooler core. It feels nice. Like, it feels great to be able to get those defense, those blocker Coolers back from our drop and put them in. But to be honest, again, it takes away from our pressure. When I'm playing, if I'm playing the 4-cost free King Cold, I would much rather get a Cooler out. I would much rather get anything else, really. Secret Rare Frieza, even the 3-cost Frieza, because I want to pressure. This one, where sure I can play those 2 Meta-Cooler from drop, but they come in rest mode, so I can't attack that turn. I need to attack, so I took him out because of that reason. He'd be one to consider if you do want to think about maybe going, removing those 2 Friezas and go a little bit more defensive. Cool. I'm not doing it. Okay, now here's the other one. I talked about this one early about the fact that I removed him. You may consider, like, which one do I like more? Do I want to play this on turn 2? Or do I want to play the Jeice? Because I can rest my opponent's cards. This one, if I threw him in, I maybe want to think about maybe going 2 and 2 Jeice, or maybe going and removing the 3-cost Frieza that does basically the same thing. One to think about. I don't like. Now from here, if you notice, I don't have any extras in this deck, and it's pretty much for the same reason as the Zengia, is I'm using all my energy every turn. And I found that I actually did have a few in there first, one of which was the Time Rewound, but I found I'm never using it because every turn I'm going to be using all that energy, so I don't have that there. So I just removed the Time Rewound. So I didn't. You may consider if you want. Another one, if your opponent's board is getting a little bit too crazy, it's always good to throw in some final explosions if you think that they're just ramping a little bit too quickly for you. Again, it's such a waste of a turn for you. In my opinion, it ends up hurting you to deal with their board more than it helps. You're not going to have that extra 3 energy. It's going to cost you either throwing down your 3 cost. Would you rather do that on your 4th turn and not play your King Colds? I just don't like it, so I removed it. Here's one that is a solid one because it is a 1 cost, and you know, maybe if you're getting down later in the game and you really can't finish things off, maybe you'll have that extra energy. You draw a card, then choose a rest mode battle card, and it can't switch to active mode. So it's another defensive one, but again, let's just embrace what this deck is. This is an offensive deck, which goes against, I've been playing a lot more defense lately, but this one is just a really fun offensive deck, and I really like the way it functions. So that's why, just get rid of it, embrace that this is a defensive deck, and we're going to go from there. All right, and that is going to do it for this episode of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Also want to give a second to thank you all. Thank you so much. We've reached our 50 subscriber first milestone of this channel. I am so grateful to you all. So grateful. We are at 50 subs. 10% of the goal of 500, which is where I can hopefully move into doing this more often. Would love to do this full time one day between that. So thank you. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet and you like what you saw here, please hit that button. We will be happy to welcome any more to the Hawk's Nest, right? We are a fearless flock of fabulous folks who love to do what we love. I just love playing Dragon Ball. I love making these decks, especially these crazy ones like Cooler. I will use Cooler in one regionals. I'm committing to it. I'm committing to the bit. I'll get a different deck on the day 2, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, if you're not quite ready to fly yet, though, no worries. Just hit that like button. We'll show up in an algorithm near you in the near future. But until then, we'll see you next time.